Hi students, I am Praveen Sebastian Paul. In this lecture we are discussing the object-oriented analysis. In the system analysis or object-oriented analysis phase of software development, the system requirements are determined, the classes are identified, and the relationship among the classes are identified. The three analysis techniques that are used in conjunction with each other of the object-oriented analysis are object modeling, dynamic modeling, and functional modeling, and we are going to discuss in detail about these three models. First of all, we are discussing the object modeling. The object modeling develops the static structure of the software system in terms of object. It defines the object, the classes into which the object can be grouped into, and the relationship between the objects. It also identifies the main attributes and operations that characterizes each class. The process of object modeling can be visualized in the following steps. Those are: first of all, identify object and group into classes. Secondly, identify the relationship among classes. Thirdly, create user object model diagram. Next one is define the user object attributes, and next one is define the operations that should be performed on the classes, and finally review the glossary. The second type of modeling is the dynamic modeling. After the static behavior of the system is analyzed, its behavior with respect to time and external changes need to be examined. This is the purpose of dynamic modeling. Dynamic modeling can be defined as a way of describing how an individual object responds to events, either internal event triggered by the other objects or external events triggered by the outside world. The process of dynamic modeling can be visualized in the following steps. First of all, identify the state of each object. Secondly, identify events and analyze the applicability of actions. Third one is construct a dynamic model diagram comprising of state transition diagrams. And fourthly, express each state in terms of object attributes. And finally, validate the state transition diagrams which are drawn. And the third type of modeling includes the functional modeling. In the functional modeling is the final component of the object-oriented analysis. The functional model shows the process that are performed within an object and how the data changes as it moves between methods. It specifies the meaning of the operations of object modeling and the actions of dynamic modeling. The functional model corresponds to the data flow diagram of traditional structured analysis. The process of functional modeling can be visualized as in the following steps. First of all, identify all the inputs and outputs. Secondly, construct data flow diagrams showing functional dependencies. Thirdly, state the purpose of each function. Fourthly, identify the constraints. Fifth one is specify optimization criteria. So my dear students, these are the different steps. That is the three different models available in object-oriented analysis. While we are comparing the structured analysis as well as the object-oriented analysis, the structured analysis or structured design, that is SASD approach, is the traditional approach of the software development based upon the waterfall model. The phases of development of a system using SASD, that is structured analysis and structured design, are feasibility study, requirement analysis and specification, system design, implementation, and finally post-implementation review. Now we will look into the relative advantages and disadvantages of structured analysis approach and object-oriented analysis approach. The major advantages or disadvantages of object-oriented analysis includes: the major advantages are It focuses upon the data rather than the procedure as in structured analysis. Secondly, the principle of the encapsulation and data hiding helps the developer to develop systems that cannot be tampered by other part of the system. And next one is it allows effective management of the software complexity by virtue of modularity. And finally, it can be upgraded from small to large system at a greater ease than in system flowing structured analysis. While this model includes disadvantages too, some of these disadvantages includes the functionality is restricted within objects. This may pose a problem for systems which are intrinsically procedural or computational in nature. It cannot identify which object would generate an optimal system design. And another disadvantage is the object-oriented model do not easily show the communication between the objects in the system, and all the interface between the object cannot be represented in a single diagram. So these are the major advantages and disadvantages of object-oriented analysis. When we are comparing the advantages and disadvantages of structured analysis, the major advantages of structured analysis is as follows. Firstly, as it follows a top-down approach in contrast to the bottom-up approach of object-oriented analysis, it can be more easily comprehended than OOA. And secondly, it is based upon functionality. The overall purpose is identified and then functional decomposition is done for developing the software. The emphasis is not only given as a better understanding of system but also generate more complete systems. And thirdly, the specification in it are written in the simple English language and hence can be more easily analyzed by non-technical persons. So these are the major advantages of structured analysis, but this model has some disadvantages too. Some of the disadvantages are, in traditional structured analysis model, one phase should be completed before the next phase. This poses a problem in design, particularly if errors crop up or requirement changes. Secondly, the initial cost of constructing the system is high, since the whole system needs to be designed at once, leaving very little option to add functionality later. And finally, it does not support the reusability of code, so the time and the cost of developing is inherently high. So my dear students, in this lecture we had discussed about the different aspects or different modelings in object-oriented analysis. So my dear students, hope you had understood this topic. So dear students, kindly go through this assignment questions. The assignment questions are: write in detail about object modeling, dynamic modeling and functional modeling. And next question is: compare the structured analysis as well as the object-oriented analysis. Next question is: write about the advantages and disadvantages of object-oriented analysis. And the last question is: write about the advantages and disadvantages of structured analysis. So my dear students, in the upcoming lecture we are going to discuss the dynamic modeling principles. So see you soon. Until then, goodbye, thank you and all the best.